What is up, guys? Welcome back to CageChat MMA. We are here, of course, to preview UFC 285. Jon Jones is back, arguably the greatest of all time. He's going to be in the top three of the list. Whether you've got Anderson Silva in there, we've got GSP in there, maybe you have Khabib Nurmagomedov in there. All realistic claims as to who the greatest of all time is. And he returns after a 3-year layoff. Of course, the last time we saw him was against Dominic Reyes in the light heavyweight division, where he fought for the title. Of course, defended the title under what was at the time quite inconclusive, maybe. Some people thought Dominic Reyes won that 3-2. Some thought Jon Jones won that 3-2. All had valiant and valid reasons as to why. But then he walked away from the sport, didn't he? He relinquished his belt to let the division move on. And the light heavyweight division hasn't really sort of settled since his removal from that division. While he was the champion, it was only him and really DC who held belts at the time. But since he's been gone, obviously that title has moved around quite a bit. But he's back. He's back in the heavyweight division. And I don't know, there feels like a different buzz tonight. Again, I'm from the Conor McGregor era, so I didn't see the best work of Jon Jones. Or maybe not the best displays of Jon Jones. I didn't see his rise against Ciryl Gane or Lyoto Machida. Not firsthand, at least. I've seen him since. But you never see that buzz. You never seem to get that aura of someone special. So maybe that's because of who he fought in the last three fights and the motivation or lack of motivation that he had in the last three fights. But tonight you're feeling it. And maybe that's a 3-year layoff happening. And we're finally seeing someone who is special in the sport again. Again, we've got Conor McGregor, who has a similar nature, a similar aura to that. If Khabib was to return, obviously that's very unlikely. It would be the same. Henry Cejudo, perhaps you could throw in there. But I don't think he has the drawing power and that sort of special feeling that you get with a Jon Jones, Conor, or Khabib. Currently we've got Israel Adesanya doing very well. We've got the likes of Jorge Masvidal's probably on the back foot. You've got Kamaru Usman. You've got Charles Oliveira, who's very good at the moment. But there's no one active that fights like Jon Jones, who pulls you in like Jon Jones does. And tonight, he's coming in at 240 odd pounds, probably 250 on fighting night, fighting for the heavyweight title against one of the very best heavyweights at the moment, Ciryl Gane, of course. Ciryl Gane, former interim champion, did go in against Francis Ngannou. Lost to Francis Ngannou, but it was a very close fight. A lot of people saying, Francis Ngannou became a wrestler that night because of what Ciryl Gane was doing to him. If you remember, 2-2 going into the final round, and Ngannou used his wrestling knowledge and had a superior wrestling knowledge and capability than what Gane had at the time, and was able to cruise through and coast through that fifth round to a decision, to retain his title, of course. And of course, since then, Ciryl Gane has, picked up a win against Taito Udasa in Paris, on what was a spectacular night. And then Francis Ngannou left the UFC, didn't he? Relinquished belt. And that's what's left us here. And I think Ciryl Gane is the right opponent. Of course, there was talk about Stipe Miocic. Curtis Blades has definitely deserved another title shot right now. But Ciryl Gane, the matchup that we could potentially see tonight between Ciryl Gane and Jon Jones is mouthwatering. We've got Jon Jones, who we know has the all-round capability to do it all. He can submit you. He can wrestle you. He can put you up against a cage and wrap his arm around you like he did Machida. But he can also strike your head off. He can kick your head off like we've seen with DC. He is maybe the most perfect fighter athlete at this sport, because he's a 7, 8 out of 10 everywhere, which is why it's so hard to predict. But of course, he is moving up the division. He is moving up to guys who are punching, a lot harder because they're 40 pounds heavier, albeit so is he. And maybe DC, being a former heavyweight, might have something, having that wrestling nature where he can push your weight around a little bit more. Although he struggled against Jon Jones, maybe that experience will help Jon Jones a little bit tonight. But Ciryl Gane, he's a fantastic kickboxer. He is a fantastic striker. How has he learned and developed since that Ngannou loss? Because obviously we saw him against Taito Udasa, but Taito Udasa is of a similar nature to a Derek Lewis, to a Ciryl Gane, where he wants to stay on the feet, he wants to hit you, he doesn't want to pick you up, take you down and wrestle on you. He wants to stand there and brawl with you. Now, Taito Udasa did knock down Ciryl Gane, which I don't believe Francis Ngannou done. Maybe he did so early in the fight, but my memory doesn't bring back a Francis Ngannou knockdown. So that night we saw the heart of Ciryl Gane. We also saw his resilience, and we saw him able to pick off a game plan fantastically with those body shots. Once he found the weakness of Taito Udasa, He went there repeatedly, went there back again with the body kicks, with the body shots, and he just took the wind out of Tai Tuivasa until Tai Tuivasa couldn't go on no further. What has Jon Jones picked up from that? Again, if you hit Ciryl Gane in the right place, he's going to go down, but is he going to stay down? Is Ciryl Gane coming into this as I'm lucky to be here? Not in the sense he's lucky to be on a title shot, but he's got a title shot. He's fighting Jon Jones, the greatest of all time. So there's a lot there for him to gain, which means if he loses, it's just I lost to the greatest of all time. That doesn't matter too much. Whereas if you lost to Francis Ngannou, there's a bit of a gym rivalry there. If you lose to Tai Tuivasa, it's like we didn't know Tai Tuivasa was supposed to be up this high. You just lost to him. That's 2 losses in a row. Whereas tonight it feels like, again, short notice fight, perhaps because we wasn't expecting, or at least the public wasn't expecting Francis Ngannou to leave. And there's not so much pressure on him. There's more pressure on Jon Jones because it's a 3-year layoff, upper division. Everyone's got eyes on Jon Jones wanting to be almost this perfect mixed martial artist on his return tonight. So that does give Ciryl Gane some freedom. You've seen it in the press this week. Ciryl Gane's a lot more relaxed. Jon Jones feels a lot more calm. He hasn't let the sort of feeling and the pressure and the anxiety of the return get to him. At least not what we've seen. He might be in the back tonight, having heavy breathing and not wanting to make the walk. But he lives with this. He breathes with this. He's an absolute animal when it comes to this, and it's affected his life outside the cage, of course. He's a ferocious character, for good or for bad. But strictly speaking on the sports, it's what's made him one of the best ever. And it's such an incredible fight to look at, because again, if you watched BT and you watched, a lot of the other traction, Jon Jones has had more title fights than Ciryl Gane has had fights. And that just shows you how good Ciryl Gane is. But Jon Jones has been there. He's been in this position so many times since he was 23 years of age. And he's 34, 35 now? So, just having that experience, having that ability to go, I've done this 4, 5, 6, however many times. He's done it 12, 13 times, if I remember correctly. It's like second nature. It's not like going into your first title fight. It's not like going into your first main event. He's been here, done it, won the t-shirt, and had all the pressures you could potentially ask of an athlete with a Nike deal, with his outside antics. Also, he's been at the very top on all aspects, whereas Ciryl Gane is still getting to the top, and it's going to be fantastic to see. We'll have a look at the tail of tape now. Of course, 26-1 against 11-1. Of course, that sole loss on Jon Jones' record, one that's very much looked at as still as a perfect record, really. Obviously, the disqualification to Matt Hamill is sole loss. Obviously, Ciryl Gane's lost to being the former champion Ngannou. Both of them stand at 6'4". They didn't look, there wasn't much of the size disparity between the two, was there? At the weigh-ins, you could see that both of them were quite evenly matched. Probably why I'm campaigning for a cruiserweight division. I don't know how much these could cut down to 230, 240, but the fact that these two can, and I guess this is the positives of the heavyweights, could go in there with a Derek Lewis who stands at 265. The likes of Ngannou who would be at 265, etc. I would like to see a cruiserweight division brought in, and I think Jon Jones could be the catalyst for a cruiserweight division, in my opinion. Both of them came in, around that 248 mark. 3.5 reach advantage there for Jon Jones. He is a very tall, long specimen, isn't he? He has got the ability to create distance. He has got the ability to stand outside the pocket and give you those kicks, those oblique kicks, etc. And how's Ciryl Gane going to deal with that? Maybe Ciryl Gane will prefer that because he's fantastic standing up. Maybe he would prefer that rather than Jon Jones getting into the pocket, getting Muay Thai clinches, and of course getting the elbows, getting the knees in there, getting some of the trips in there. Dizzy and Ciryl Gane, of course. It would be very interesting to see what Jon Jones is planning tonight. By the sounds of it, again, listen to BT, wants to get him down there, feel him out there for 20 seconds and see if Ciryl Gane has that willpower. Maybe he's made those advances to be able to get up and transition through the takedown process and defend from the takedowns, of course. But I think Jon Jones wants to find out what he's like down there and really test him and maybe not punish him, but almost smother him to quit almost. It feels like an assassin sort of mentality to Jon Jones tonight. Rather than going in there, hitting him with one shot and walking off, he wants to go into deep waters with Ciryl Gane. And it'll be interesting to see when and where that deep water comes in. If it goes right for Jon Jones, it could be round 2 or round 3. If Ciryl Gane has a good start, it could be round 4, round 5 that we see either or, starting to feel the pace of the fight. We've seen Ciryl Gane, he doesn't fight at the most blistering of paces, but once he finds a rhythm, like he did against Rosenstruck, like he did against Tai Tuivasa, and it becomes his rhythm, it's very hard to break that rhythm for him. Until you get a takedown like Francis Ngannou done, which is why Jon Jones, having superior wrestling to what Ngannou done makes him such a draw to pick tonight. But yeah, it's an incredible fight. Incredible time to see Jon Jones back. Again, the last few fight cards have been at the apex, and it's all been bubbling away, hasn't it? Nicely to tonight, where back in the T-Mobile Arena, everything's on fire, everything's on full steam. You're buzzing. The card's incredible. Main card's incredible. Main event's incredible. We've got Valentina Shevchenko looking to, become the first fighter to complete the set on the new UFC belts, of course, for the 8 diamonds, and we'll talk about her in a second. But everything seems to be building up to a Jon Jones win, doesn't it? But Ciryl Gane is no mug, and he's not someone who will, hopefully just not roll over for Jon Jones. Sometimes it can feel like, especially we've seen it with Jon Jones, maybe with Conor a little bit, definitely Khabib, where you go in there, you go, oh, I'm fighting Khabib Nurmagomedov, I'm fighting the best ever, and you almost accept being in there as a victory. We almost saw it with Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman, but Leon Edwards pulled everything out of the fire in that 5th round, and Kamaru Usman did have that actually. That way, you're just in there and you're happy to be in there with Kamaru Usman. So yeah, where's Ciryl Gane at mentally? And there was some talk about his hand maybe being re-injured that he broke against Tai Tuivasa. So how was that going to be held? I noticed they didn't want to shake hands, or he didn't want to shake hands at the press conference. Was that a bit of a tell to maybe if Jon Jones's handshake was too rough, that he would have felt the pain or would have felt this and that? Is that a little bit insight to the game plan? We don't know. Maybe that's just, overanalyzing it a little bit. But it's an incredible fight. But I am going to go with the Jon Jones victory. I think Jon Jones gets the win tonight. And I was thinking about it earlier. He's known for being almost this legend killer, but also going for his own generation of light heavyweights. He could do the same at heavyweight. He could be the one that, let's say he beats Ciryl Gane tonight, goes and beats Stipe Miocic, probably the greatest heavyweight of all time. That's the current and the past taken care of. And then you look through Curtis Blaydes, Tom Aspinall, Sergey Pavlovich, maybe a Tai Tuivasa. You've got all these fighters coming up where he could take on the current generation. And if he really is the greatest of all time, and he fights 2-3 times a year. He hasn't done so for a while. But even if that's twice a year, he could definitely go for the next 3 years and just go through the current crop of heavyweight talents. The Tom Aspinalls, as we mentioned, the quote-unquote future champions of this division that we've seen. Without Jon Jones in there, you would say, oh, he's going to be a guaranteed champion. He's going to be a guaranteed champion. With time, Jon Jones could ruin all that. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting. It's a shame DC's retired, because again, it would be interesting to get a trilogy at heavyweight, but again, we've seen that fight twice, and the only reason you'd want to see that is because Jon Jones would be ready for that. He'd be up for that, especially at heavyweight, because then he can say, I beat you at your natural weight class and I beat you at my weight class. But yeah, that would be incredible. But I'm going to go with Jon Jones to get the win tonight. I think we're in for a long night, so I'm going to go Jon Jones 4th round. I think the first 2 rounds are much of a feeling out process for both of them. I think round 3, Jon Jones dictates the fight on the ground with a takedown, and almost breaks the spirit of Ciryl Gane. And then in round 4, brings in those elbows, brings in a few takedowns in there, and then Ciryl Gane calls it a night. Maybe with a submission, but I think Jon Jones gets it done by TKO more so than submission in round 4. Moving on to Valentina Shevchenko, of course, in the co-main event. Valentina, in a conversation of maybe the pound-for-pound number 1 right now. Of course, she's coming to that win against Taila Santos. Again, similar to Jon Jones, coming off that win against Dominic Reyes. Tonight, coming in for that win against Taila Santos back in June. Of course, many people thought, Taila Santos won, or at least came as close as we've seen the champion lose to a title. She looked human on that night. Now, she said she had some health issues and an injury potentially going into that fight. She had the knee injury, of course, back in 2020 that stopped her fighting Joanne Wood. And I'm not saying maybe she's passed her best, because since then she's put three victories, not counting Tyler Santos, behind her, and also two of those being the finishes against Lauren Murphy and Jessica Andrade. But Heather is the head that wears the crown, and she's worn this crown for a long time now, and it doesn't look like anyone is going to take it off her. And probability, I know probability doesn't really play a factor in MMA, but probability says that she's eventually going to lose it, whether she retires, whether she loses it to someone in her division, or she moves up and relinquishes it. There's going to be a day when Valentina Shevchenko isn't the flyweight champion, but I don't think that's going to be today. Of course, she's coming up against Alexa Grasso, who's going to be, she's on a fantastic streak. 4 fight win streak. Ji Young Kim, Macy Barber, Joanne Wood, Ethan Araujo. Now, those are all fantastic wins, and this is my problem with the flyweight division. Are they title fight wins? Are they enough wins and enough of a CV or the resume to hand in and go, I deserve a title shot? I don't know. And again, some of this is on Valentina, and again, no negativity towards her because she's been sublime in her performances. But because of that lack of depth in the division, because she's already beaten the Lauren Murphys of the world, the Katlyn Chookagians of this world, because she's already beaten Jessica Andrade, Jessica Rai back in when Jessica Rai was still fighting. Obviously, she's retired now. And we can have a look at the rankings also. She's beaten a lot. Jennifer Maia, she's beaten already. She went the distance with Jennifer Maia. So any fresh blood in it doesn't get the time or energy to be able to build themselves up to Valentina Shevchenko. It's almost being forced to Valentina Shevchenko. And then Valentina gets a dominant win over them, and we go, oh, they weren't that good anyway. When really, they maybe needed 2 or 3 fights more, which is the concern with Erin Blanchfield and Manon Theroux. Particularly more with Erin Blanchfield because she's on the hot streak at the moment, with wins over Molly McCann, obviously Jessica Andrade. She is probably in line for the title shot next after tonight. She was supposed to fight Tyler Santos, which would have been interesting, but of course being a former champion of Jessica Andrade, again, her resume looks even better now. I would like Erin Blanchfield to fight Manon Theroux. One, because Manon wants 5 rounds and needs 5 rounds before any sort of talk of the title bout, but also because it's just that extra bit of experience. It's that extra bit of media on you. It's that extra bit of pressure on you. Put it on... don't put it on the Apex, because there's no pressure in the Apex. There's more of the pressure. If you're going to fight Manon, put it in Paris. Put it in Paris, maybe a 5-round fight. Or at least a 3-round co-main event where you got the pressure of an 8, 9, 10,000 crowd on you. Where you've got the eyeballs and the media on you in Paris. Obviously, the British media goes over there with a more dominant British sort of presence, for want of a better word. There's a lot more eyes on these European cards and these cards in stadiums that we've seen with London, Paris, Jacksonville. There still is that little bit more buzz, where if you put them in the Apex, everyone goes, I guess we'll talk about it, but it hurts you a little bit deep inside, because these fighters, especially if you're in the top 5 and above, you should not be fighting at the Apex at any point recently. Apex should be Contender Series, it should be the Ultimate Fighter, and it should be those coming up the board, maybe just a little bit outside the rankings, maybe 15 up to 5, like the Krylovs in the Spanish world. If you want to put them in a main event, fine, do it at the Apex where there's less on the line. To use a football analogy, you've got Champions League, you've got Europa League, you've got Europa Conference League. If you're in that Conference League fight bracket, if you're in the UFC, if you're in MMA, and again, that is probably 8 down to 15 in the rankings, put them in the Apex. But if you're anything above there, you need that experience, you need that buzz around you to fight for a crowd and with a crowd. But back to Valentina Shevchenko, I think Alexa Grasso's, not that she's not ready for her, I just don't think she's had the time to develop to become a contender. I haven't said that she is a very good fighter, but I think Valentina tonight is going to be a little bit too much for her, and she seems hungry tonight. Again, the split decision win seems to have pissed her off more, because a lot of people doubted her and questioning where she is at in her career. And a pissed off Valentina Shevchenko is a very scary one, because she's one of the nicest people when you speak to her or you hear her interviews and her media. She's always very warm and embracing. So to see her pissed off and bubbling under the surface, now maybe that gets too much for her and is a bit, pushes her over the edge, so to speak. But it could make her very mean where we see a Jessica Ryan moment, where we see a Katlyn Chicago moment, where we see her get into that crucifix, which punish her opponent and break the spirit of Alexa Grasso. But to have a look at the title take, 23-3 against 15-3, of course, the experience within the champions ballpark there. She also, no, she's lacking the half-inch reach, but I don't think that would bother her too much. She is 34 years of age. It's a 5-year age difference, of course, which is good for Alexa Grasso because it gives her time, should she lose tonight, to rebuild herself. Now, one positive in Alexa Grasso's favour is we've got Brandon Moreno champion. We've got Yair Rodriguez as interim champion. You've got Real Rosas Jr. doing very well at the moment. There seems to be a hotbed of Mexican MMA coming up at the moment. And should she pick up the title tonight, it would be fantastic to see, one, possibly a rematch, because I'd imagine Valentina gets a rematch no matter. If and when she loses, she'd get an immediate rematch. But there's a real talk through UFC Mexico this year. With those three fighting, when you've got Volkanovski, Yair, you've got Brandon Moreno up against probably Pantoja, you would say. And, Alexa Grasso tonight up against an Aaron Blanchard, up against the Valentina probably, or Manon. And that could be a little bit of motivation for her. The fact that she's seeing her country doing so well in the sport can be that little bit of burst of going, I want that too. You've seen Brandon Moreno do it, you've seen Yair do it. And maybe that's a little bit of that 1%, 2% of motivation to say, oh, I can do it too. And get the rewards from it. So there is that. But I do think Valentina gets it done. And I think she gets it done quite handily. Again, I think Alexa Grasso might have a positive round one. But once then the champion comes over and takes over and says, this is my division, there's levels to this. Which is the vibe I'm getting from her. Reading her press and media this week. There's levels to this game sort of mentality. So I think Shevchenko gets it done within 3. And I think she gets it done quite violently also. Expect her to get a $50,000 bonus tonight. As should you with Shavkat Rakhmonov. Of course, 16-0. He's up against Jeff Neal tonight. The toughest test of his career. Let's not forget, Jeff Neal is he's called Hands Still for a reason. He's a fantastic opponent. He's on a 2-fight win streak with that split decision against Ponzinibbio late last year in 2021, and then beating and knocking out Vicente Luque in the middle of last year, back in August. He does feel like he takes 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Having said that, he was on a fantastic run until those losses to Stephen Thompson and Neil Magny, both decision losses. But Shavkat Rakhmonov, of course, submitted Neil Magny. He's finished every fight an opponent he's had, whether it's won by submissions or TKOs / KOs. He hasn't seen the distance in any of his fights. He's not even got into a round 3 once. I can see here from his Tapology. So 16 fights, round 3 once. He's won them all. He's finished them all. He is, if it wasn't for Hamzat Chimaev being in this division, all eyes would be on Shavkat Rakhmonov. But because you've got such a killer in Hamzat Chimaev, also he's going under the radar and he's getting his work done. And a win tonight against Jeff Neal would certainly push him up there to probably face a Wonder Boy, to probably face maybe Jorge Masvidal, to go and take the shine of Masvidal. I know Masvidal and Burns are fighting this in Miami, aren't they? Of course, maybe he gets the winner of that with a win tonight. Although if Gilbert Burns wins, he's probably going to be looking up towards a Colby perhaps, or even a title shot if Leon Edwards defeats Kamaru Usman 286 in a couple of weeks. So he's in a very good part of the division. Maybe Bilal Muhammad, who knows? But I do think Shavkat gets the job done tonight. It's hard not to call a finish, isn't it? It's hard to. You want to be almost not hipster-like, but go, oh, I think this goes to the decision. This could be the first time Shavkat goes to the scorecards. This could be the first time, Jeff Neal takes Jeff Neal is the first person to take Shavkat, through 15 minutes. But I think Shavkat gets it done sooner than that, to be honest. I think he gets it done within 2. Again, he's going to finish him within 2, in my opinion, if I'm saying the fight's not going the distance. Recently, he's had, 3 submissions and 1 finish. I can see him looking to try and get a TKO or a KO tonight and really putting himself on the map in this welterweight division. He's a fantastic fighter to watch, nonetheless, as is Mateusz Gamrot. Now, Mateusz Gamrot is coming in on reasonably short notice, 2 or 3 weeks, I think it was, maybe a month, since Dan Hooker pulled out of the fight due to his broken hand. But Mateusz Gamrot put his hand up immediately. And we all love that sort of thing as fans, don't we? Especially when he's come off that loss to Beneil Dariush. It was a close fight, but Beneil certainly deserved the win. And, Mateusz Gamrot has been fantastic. Scott Holtzman, Jeremy Stephens wins, fantastic. Diego Ferreira, of course, and Arman Tsarukyan, he got the win over also. So since he's come over to the UFC, former KSW champion has certainly been very impressive, and he's certainly, you know, earned his way into that top 10. You put him in there with the desires, you put him in there with the Jalen Turners as maybe the future of this division. I'm definitely forgetting a few names, but you know, this is a fight that makes your mouth water, similar to the main event, but maybe not as much, because it means a little bit more. Obviously, Dan Hooker, I'm a huge fan of Dan Hooker, but he was ranked lower than Jalen Turner, so Jalen Turner now gets the opportunity to look up and fight for a higher place in his division rather than defending the place in his division. And, you know, Dan Hooker is someone who maybe, I don't know if he's lost title aspirations, or I don't think the public probably lost any sort of title aspirations that Dan Hooker wanted, especially having gone down to featherweight and failed, and coming back up. It almost feels like he's trying to refine himself, albeit he looked very good against Claudio Puelles. But, you know, these two feel like two future challengers going at it, a fight or two, maybe sooner than you'd want. But you can definitely see the winner tonight, you know, going on to fight a Gaethje, to fight a Poirier, maybe to fight a Michael Chandler McGregor, depending on what happens with that also. So this is a big win for both of those tonight. Of course, Jalen Turner, you know, fantastic, 13-5. He's put away Brad Riddell, Jamie Malarkey. Would have been interesting, obviously, if he had fought Dan Hooker, because obviously Jamie Malarkey and Brad Riddell, I believe they're all sick kickboxers. I know Brad Riddell is. I couldn't remember off the top of my head if Jamie Malarkey is also sick kickboxing, but the fact that he would have gone through 3 of those in one night. I know it's Magnus Martial Arts Arena, but the fact he would have gone through 3 Oceanic fighters would have been pretty damn impressive for Jalen Turner. You know, he's also submitted Uros Medic and Brock Weather, and he has, you know, he's 6'3", to be cutting down to 155. I don't know how long he's got to be able to do it at 27 years of age. It's probably taxing on his body, but once he hits that 30 mark, is he going to have to move up to 170? We don't know. It's going to be an interesting fight, and it's hard to pick tonight. I think this could be fight of the night, because neither of them want to back down. Both of them are fighting for something important. Gamrot fighting for a little bit more. He wants to avenge that loss, similar to Valentina, that he's pissed off with how his performance went last time out, and he was to put that right. Whereas Jalen Turner's fighting to start of 2023 year as a top 10 lightweight and cement his place in this division. I've gone with Gamrot on my bet, but something's telling me Jalen Turner. So I'm gonna sit on the fence of this one. So we expect a fantastic fight from both, and a fight of the night bonus is gonna head towards both of those, and it's fantastic to have second on the main card. Of course, open up the main card is Jamie Pickett versus Bo Nickel. Now, Bo Nickel 3-0 in the UFC. Of course, more so the European fans and and combat sports fans that aren't into wrestling in the States. Obviously, wrestling is huge in the States. Bo Nickel is very well known as probably one of the best. I don't know if he's one of the best to do it. They would have to certify that, but definitely one of the best at the moment to do it in wrestling. And even himself has said he'd, if he was fighting in the Olympics next year, he'd probably pick up the gold medal. But he's transitioned over to MMA. Of course, he had to have 2 cracks on the Contender Series. Now, I think they would have given him the contract nonetheless after his win against Zach Borrego, but they wanted to get him that a little bit of promotion and a little bit of media coverage, because obviously with the Contender Series now, there comes a lot of hype with it, and you get told no, it's a little chapter in the story. Obviously, you've seen Brandon Loughnane, he got no with the Contender Series, but we see how that sort of chapter has developed into him becoming PFL champion. But now, of course, Bo Nickel got his second chance in there. One as he did in the first round, quite a one-sided beatdown into submission, and now he comes up tonight against Jamie Pickett. So it's going to be an interesting fight. Of course, it's a big step up for him, and it kind of takes me back to Alex Pereira. Now, obviously, Alex Pereira was coming out through kickboxing, one of the best kickboxers around, but he also didn't have too much experience when he came over to the UFC. And you're going, it's a step too soon. Why are you doing this? Now, obviously, with Alex Pereira, we had the whole Israel Adesanya discussions, because obviously there's
why do I get 5% cash back on everything I buy? Because I buy everything on my Platinum Cashback Everyday credit card. New card members get 5% cash back.
But yeah, of course, with Bo Nickel, there isn't he's faced him in the past in wrestling. He's faced him in the past, and there's no sort of ladder there to see why you should jump him up the rankings. But the fact that he's calling out Hamza Chimaev, the fact that he's calling out Whitaker, Adesanya, Pereira, and showing his confidence. Now, yes, that can come off as a bit of a cocky move when you've just been signed to the UFC. It can also come off as a way to latch yourself in the media, maybe. But he's coming off that with confidence. And a win tonight, if he puts Jamie Pickett away in the same fashion he has done on the Contender Series fights that he's had, wow, we're in for something special tonight. And we've just seen, Darren Till come out of the UFC. There's only quarter requested to be released. But it's going to be interesting. The fact that, you got Derek Brunson up against Dricus du Plessis tonight, two fantastic middleweights who are, looking for perhaps title contention later this year, if not definitely into the beginning of next year. The fact that they're on the prelims and Bo Nickel's on the main card says a lot about what this US audience brings in the eyes of the UFC, and also where they put Bo Nickel. And if he wins tonight, does he call out maybe a Dricus du Plessis? Does he call out, someone in that back end of the top 15 perhaps? Who knows? It'd be interesting to see. Or does he go straight into the top 5, top 6? Maybe a Paulo Costa, maybe a I'm trying to think who's in there at the moment. Why can't I think? Maybe a Jack Manson, perhaps. That was the name that was coming to my head, or a Kelvin Gastelum even. Kelvin Gastelum versus Bo Nickel would be an interesting fight, wouldn't it? But yeah, he has to get the job done tonight. Hopefully the pressure won't be too much to him. But again, first walkout in the UFC proper, it's going to be a whole different game for him tonight. You got Vivian Araujo against Amanda Ribas. Obviously, definitely a fight that's gone under the radar in the flyweight division. Amanda Ribas, 10-3-0. Vivian Araujo, 11-4-0. Ribas, of course, coming off the back of that loss to Katlyn Chookagian, a split decision loss that is. She's 2-2 in her last all with wins against Virna Jandiroba and Paige VanZant. She was mixing up between strawweight and flyweight. I don't know whether she's picked her division yet, but she's making the walk out at 125 against a ranked Vivian Araujo. Again, similar. Amanda Ribas wins tonight. Again, she has got that loss to Katlyn Chookagian, but she's put herself right in the top 10 and becomes one of the few that Valentina hasn't beaten. And she is a popular character. She is a likable character. So she'd only have to beat her. Tyler Santos. I know that's feels disrespectful to say, she only has to beat her, and she has to get it done. But she'd only be one, maybe 2 wins away from fighting Valentina if she wins against Araujo tonight. Similarly, if Araujo wins tonight, she's only 2 wins away from a belt opportunity also. But yeah, obviously Araujo coming off the loss against Alexa Grasso, who's fighting for the title tonight. She also has a loss to Katlyn Chookagian, but she's beaten Montana De La Rosa, Modatheri, Andrea Lee, and it shows. Again, we will have a quick look at the flyweights. Obviously, outside this, like I Casey O'Neill, outside the top 15, who's ready to come back. So it is a very competitive division. Once you take the champion away, it's a very competitive division, and I think the same will happen with flyweight as to what happened with light heavyweight when Jon Jones relinquished the belt. The minute Valentina loses the belt, that belt will be moved around 2, 3, or 4 times. I think Aaron Blanchard will probably be maybe not the last, but I think she picks it up, maybe drops it, picks it up again and holds it for a long time because she's only 23 years of age. But I definitely can see 3 or 4 champions being built. And Tatiana Suarez also, can't forget her. She's just come off that win against De La Rosa. She wants to go back down to strawweight, but definitely you could see her being at flyweight within 4 or 5 years easily, and maybe going champ. Who knows? Zhang Weili also could become champ if Valentina moves out of that division. It's going to be very interesting to see. We've got Julian Marquez up against Marc-Andre Barriouth in the 185-pound division. Again, tonight, I think Bo Nickel is probably rated higher than both of those two, which is reflected on his place in the card. But if he gets a win tonight, I don't know if Julian Marquez and Marc-Andre Barriouth would be fights within his sort of grasp. I would say yes because of the experience. And we know Barriouth and Marquez are staples within the UFC. But we don't know. Ian Gary tonight, fighting Kenan Song, of course. He's had a fantastic career, hasn't he? The future, they call him, but I think he's becoming more of the present, in my opinion. I'm gutted I never got to see him live at Cage Wars. I've seen Paul Hughes, I've seen Jordan Vucenic, I've seen Morgan Sherry fight. But I never saw Ian Gary fight. It was unfortunate because of the COVID pandemic that he became champion and had that meteor rise on there. He is only 25 years of age. He's still very young. He's 11-0, had fantastic fantastic start to his UFC career with Jordan Williams, Darren Weeks, and Gabe Green. Now, for him, he's been not fortunate to go to decisions because you always want to get your job done quickly, but he's not had that. No, if he'd blasted through his opponents, Darren Weeks and Gabe Green in the first round, maybe he would be up a little bit higher. But he's able to go away and do his work. He's worked at Killcliff, of course, at the moment. That's where his home gym is, but he's been recently going to Renegade and training with Leon Edwards, the champion. Let's not forget. He's also had a son. He's got married. So he's had a lot of life going on outside the cage, which is why he hasn't fought since July, because he is very active. He fights 2 or 3 times a year. He fought 3 times in 2021 when he became the champion, and of course made his UFC debut. But it's something special about that kid, and unfortunately the UFC fans haven't quite taken him to him because of the Conor McGregor sort of moniker that he's going down with. But again, I think that's just there's a child inside of them that's grateful to be where he is at, and the fact that he followed his hero to the UFC. And you saw it when they met at the weigh-ins, ceremonial weigh-ins. There's something special about Ian Gary. And he's looking at Wonder Boy. He's looking at those Brian Barberenas. He's looking at those names there as potential fights where he's going to end the year at. And now he has to get the job done tonight. Probably get one more in there. But you could definitely see him fighting at Wonder Boy 2023, maybe early 2024. I think he can get to 15-0 this. Maybe not 15-0 this year, but I think he can get to 13-0. He's had a very good year. He's had a very, very good year. And he's been saying again, if he wins tonight, and I expect him to get the win tonight, he wants to be on that Miami card in what, a month and a half, maybe? It's the May card, isn't it? It's at the start of May. So maybe 2 months. If he gets the first round finish tonight, book him on that card. Actually, no doubt, because of course Gilbert Burns' his teammate is on that card also. So I think he'd be wanting to get on there. Against who knows? There's a bright bunch of welterweights coming up at the moment, and of course there's some coming down. The Robbie Lawlers, the Bonza Nibials of this world, they're coming down to this, whereas you've got the lights thing Gary on the way up. So it would be interesting to see what happens. Would be very interesting what happens. Also, let's not forget, in the division you've got the likes of Reece McKee fighting for his welterweight title at Cage Warriors this month. It would be no surprise or no shock to see if Reece McKee picks up a victory at Cage Warriors, to see him re-signed with the UFC. Obviously, he had a rough time in the UFC. Again, Hamzat Chimaev was not the most ideal situation, but when the UFC calls, you have to take the shot. And we just seen it with Modestas Bukauskas coming into the UFC after being released, picked up his light heavyweight title with Cage Warriors, and in a couple of weeks he's defeating Tyson Pedro. And getting back in his groove. And you can definitely see the same with Reece McKee. And how good would it be for Irish MMA if Reece McKee and Ian Gary stepped in there together? I know it would be heartbreaking, similar and unfortunate we don't get this fight between Leroy Murphy and Nathaniel Wood, because you're seeing 2 fantastic talents out of England going at it. Now, there's a bit of Manchester versus London. There's a bit of GP top team versus GP Manchester. Or Manchester top team, should I say GP top team. There's something there. And especially with Reece McKee and Ian Gary, you got North versus Southern Ireland. There's something there that's mouth-watering. But yeah, it'd be interesting to let us know. If you're watching Irish MMA fans, Quarter, I'm looking at you. Reece McKee, Ian Gary, what are we saying about that fight? Could we see it towards the end of this year? Who knows? But yeah, I'm going with an Ian Gary win. I'm also going with Amanda Martinez, Cameron Simon, of course in the 135-pound division, of course, probably my favourite division to watch. Bantamweights, they never miss, do they? Jessica Penne up against Tabitha Ricci. You got Theresa Basharat up against Amon Blackshear. And you got Loic Radzhabov up against Esteban Ribovic. So yeah, you also got Cody Garbrandt versus Trenton Jones. I just realised I missed that out on the way down for the card. It's a fantastic card from top to finish. But yeah, I'm going to let you go and enjoy the fights, guys. Do make sure to hit that follow button. We're on our way to 2,500 followers on here on Facebook, of course. Also go to don't forget to subscribe on YouTube at CageChat MMA. And follow our socials, TikTok and Instagram, and Twitter, all at CageChat MMA also, where we'll be keeping you up to date with everything UFC and MMA. And it's fantastic to be back for a pay-per-view, isn't it? We've had those Apex cards for a couple of weeks now, but there's a buzz back, and it's a Jon Jones buzz. And we could be interested. It could be ready to see something very special tonight. But yes, I'll see you guys on Monday for the review. Enjoy the fights.